Hey, it's Wayne. Welcome back. Today we're going to be looking a little bit further into Roma-Torino, what's going around the rest of the league in Serie A, as well as who is going to the World Cup from Italy. Let's have a look.
If you like my video, don't forget to subscribe and give it a thumbs up. Thanks.
Okay, so Roma enters this last round before the World Cup break against Torino without their captain Lorenzo Pellegrini. He hasn't had the best of seasons so far. However, when he's not there, Roma just don't play at the same tempo, and I think we saw a little bit of that in the first 20 minutes. We see Volpato get the start on the right side of the trident, along with Zaniolo on the left, and Abraham starting. As the match goes on in the first 20 minutes, they're a bit flat. They're absorbing pressure really deep. Torino starts to create chances. Even Juric is a good manager. I rate him. I think he's one of the better ones. I think he took a step backwards when he went from Verona to Torino. I think he could be at a much better club. But Roma plays the same way that we really saw them against Sassuolo, was just letting the attack get too far forward. And that's okay when you play defensive ball. However, the thing is, when you play too close to your defense, to your keeper's box, accidents happen, as we saw against Lazio. Then against the run of play, the referee calls a penalty kick for Roma, takes a look at it, and it's waved off by VAR. After that, Roma seemed to have a little bit more in their step. It was the right decision to call off the penalty kick, and then shortly after, we see Kamara make an interception in the offensive third. This is so important. He brings a little bit something different compared to Cristante or Matic, that's for sure. There's no debate on that. And he plays the ball quickly to Tammy, who plays it down to the left, and Zaniolo gets a shot. However, it goes high over the bar. It's unfortunate for him because I think that he needs another goal in Serie A against a decent opponent on the field, actually. Not a free kick, not from a set piece, but an actual open play goal. Roma get their third corner of the match in the 37th minute. Zalewski taking it. He had an okay match, but it goes just wide as Mancini gets in the middle of it, putting it just a little, maybe like a foot and a half too far off the spot. It was good momentum, and you can even hear the crowd starting to get behind the team at that point, and that was very different from what we heard in the last, let's say, 65th minute mark, where the fans actually start to boo the players, the Roma players, that being, of course, they're the home side. The second half begins. El Shaarawy enters for Volpato. El Shaarawy has had a decent season, I think, coming off the bench. Being a rotation player has been a good match for him, and he's done a good job. Immediately, we see him try to make a goal-scoring opportunity there. So Roma get their first shot on target not until the 49th minute. Zaniolo flicks it onto Abraham, who finds himself in the box. He takes a bad touch and is unable to shoot, so Abraham puts it across the face of goal for El Shaarawy, who has his shot blocked by Didi, who had a decent match, the center back. I looked him up. I thought he would be maybe a younger guy. He's not. He's a veteran center back there, which, I wonder, this guy had such a good performance. Why is he at Torino? And no disrespect to that team, but I felt, given his performance, this is a guy who is a decent player. But I guess it's a different type of game when you're an offensive, attack-minded center back and one who can play at an elite level versus one who's just good at man marking and making sure the guy doesn't get the ball. I don't want to take that away from a center back, but that's not the most difficult skill set to have with man marking. So then there's the goal by Linetti in the 55th minute. It's a header not far from Patricio, going uncontested. So Linetti's maybe 5'8", not that tall of a guy, maybe 1.8 meters, and he's able to find himself free just a couple feet from Patricio, who was definitely expecting his center backs, his teammates, to help him there. And Roma finds themselves on the back foot at home. Not a great look. There's zero reply for the next 13 minutes. Tahirovic gets his debut in Giallorosso, and then Dybala comes on, and you can feel it, and the fans they feel something a little bit different, and the players do too, because previous to Dybala having played in that session that from when Torino scored, there were 0 shots. Dybala comes on, gets 8 shots that the team creates in total. 4 were on target. Previous to that, I think the one shot I mentioned was really much of nothing, where actually it wasn't on target at all. Now that I read my notes, I'm incorrect in my notes saying it's on target. El Shaarawy's shot was blocked. So Roma does not get their first shot on target until Dybala steps in. El Shaarawy has a great opportunity from about 16 yards out, but it's a good save by Milinkovic-Savic. That's in the 78th minute. In the 83rd minute, 5 minutes later, Zaniolo beats his defender, cutting in from the right to the left. His shot hits the hand of the defender for seemingly a penalty kick, but no call. I'm not sure why this one was not given the VAR treatment. Why wasn't it looked at? Very weird to me how this one did not go to the spot. Another controversial moment here. Dybala picks up a yellow after getting into it with the referee. He played a ball down to Belotti, who was fouled by the ref, and the referee says no foul. That was a strange turn of events there, where Dybala had picked it up, plays it quickly to Belotti, who tries to spin and is tugged down, and no call again. I'm absolutely not blaming the ref for this match. I didn't think they had a good match, but I wouldn't say that this Roma lost or Roma drew because of the refs. I think that they were just a sour part in this, but Roma has to do much better. You cannot have this alibi or put all of the blame on the referees. I don't think that's fair. I think that the play wasn't good enough, and that's apparent if we get to Mourinho's press conference a little bit here. Dybala is finally awarded a penalty late as Zaniolo pirouettes to play Dybala through. Dybala is then hacked. It's an insane tackle there. Belotti steps up. I had a weird feeling. Didn't think Belotti should take it, more so just because he was cold. I know Belotti can take penalty kicks, but when players come on as a sub and they're really not used to it and they're not high on their confidence, they haven't been scoring a lot, Belotti's probably not the guy that you want taking it. If Pellegrini was there, he would have taken it. I think a lot of fans would have wanted to say Dybala, but of course, same situation. Dybala is cold. Who else could have taken it? Maybe El Shaarawy would have been a contestant there. El Shaarawy has scored some incredible free kicks throughout his career. Let's get to the press conference now by Mourinho. He says, "I'm old-fashioned, but I think that when you become a pro footballer in a universe where millions and millions of children dream of doing this, you don't need the support of anyone. You don't need an external source of motivation. What is this? An external source? A coach? A psychologist? Why?" He says. He is getting at his players here and saying, you need to wake up. You need to understand really what you do for a job. And if you're saying you feel pressure, this is not pressure. If you need motivation to play, to earn your millions of dollars, then this is not for you. Do I like Mourinho saying this to the press? Not necessarily. I don't ever like comments between the players and the manager, the players in public. I don't think this is something which is really appropriate, but Mourinho will always speak his mind. He says you have to give your all every day on the pitch, in every training session, in every match. Play badly, play well, same mistakes, but the attitude is something separate from that, he says. This raises questions over today's world. Who needs psychological support here? Run, friend. Get out there. Win individual duels, cause problems, put yourself out. My friend, there are millions of children who dream of being where you are, so get there. These players are privileged. The external source of motivation should be that plus, that little bit of extra, but you are a man. Mistakes are part of the game. When it comes to the attitude, that is different. Do you need motivation to earn your salary? He's annoyed, and I'm putting it lightly without using profanity here. He is really frustrated, I think, Mourinho, with the players. However, I didn't hear Mourinho at once say, maybe I got it wrong, maybe the tactics didn't suit. I think that he is being a little bit, he's on like the 51% side of the 49, where I think he went a touch too much, a touch too hard here. Because like I just said, I don't think it's really appropriate to call your players out in public like that. This is a conversation you have face to face. Because what the media will do is they will run riot with this. This will be all over social media. This will be spoken about by radios and critiqued. There's several Rete Sport and different ones around Rome that people listen to every single day for hours. So this is just fuel for that fire. Furthermore, on this topic with Rick Karsdorp, we see him, it looks to be a reality now that Rick Karsdorp will not be a part of this team going further, as you could see with his not so cryptic Instagram message here, his story, which he leaves, this teardrop that he'll be going. And of course, the rumor mill has started. Fabrizio Romano reporting, He has suitors, perhaps Juventus. Who knows? Doesn't matter. The fact is that after a few years and being a good rotational player, Rick Karsdorp, his time seems to have come to an end here. I'm not happy about this. I think that this probably should have been, once again, not discussed in public. Walter Sabatini, former director, somebody who's been very close to Roma over the years, said pushing players is good, but when you put a player like Karsdorp out there as an object of scorn, you take away his ability to work. This lad will probably never be able to have a normal life in Rome again. It is sad that he felt the need to run away to Holland. It could have been dealt with differently. I agree with Walter Sabatini here. And somebody that Walter liked was Raja Nainggolan. Unfortunately, it looks like his time at Royal Antwerp has come to an end as well. So he's gotten himself into hot water. Since he posted that video on Instagram is the root of all evil, is it not, for players, of him smoking cigarettes on a New Year's Eve party in Rome, and then he goes to Inter Milan as part of the Zaniolo deal. Well, it's not the Zaniolo deal at the time. Now it is, looking back on it. And it's been downhill. Of course, after that, he goes to Cagliari. He goes back on loan from Inter. He can't get an official deal from Inter to Cagliari. He ends up going back to where he grew up for, his early life, but not so much the majority of his life at this point. And he's even said, Nainggolan has said in a recent press conference about this, that he feels Italian and he didn't want to go to Antwerp at all. And it's a sad situation. And I am not a therapist. I'm not a counselor. But I tried to psychoanalyze Nainggolan here. And I feel that with such reckless behavior, the way that the decisions he's made and what he's done in public while being a public figure, attracting this negative attention to him, is drunk driving and very serious things, and getting in a car without a license, having his license suspended, smoking an e-cigarette on the bench. These are things which are nonsensical. They don't make sense. They're not appropriate. And I think about his background. And Nainggolan's father left his family at an early age. Him and his sister were raised by his mother. He never knew his Indonesian side, and he's half Indonesian. And I wonder if that trauma, because that is childhood trauma, which weighs heavily on people, and just because people get older does not mean that it resolves itself. Like, time doesn't heal that wound unless you deal with it, unless you have a proper outlet. And I feel bad for Raja because I love him. I have his jersey. I have very few player jerseys. You could see Totti in the background here. Aside from that, I have my last name on an Italy jersey I got when they were in the quarterfinals of Euro 2020. I have Daniele De Rossi, and I have Nainggolan. Those are the three. That's it. So I really have a soft spot for him. And like I said, though, I wonder if that's been taken care of. And it makes me feel really bad for Nainggolan. I hope it's not the case, but I have a strong feeling that it comes back to traumas and things that were just never handled with, besides just being, he's just being difficult, he's just being immature. A lot of times, and I realize this because I work with children, a lot of times there's so much more to the story. There's such a background, a character profile, if you will. Let's move on now to the World Cup. So we've got a full episode coming where I'll be previewing the teams of all Serie A players who are participating in the World Cup in their respective teams. But I want to take a look at the 4 Roma players right now and their groups. We've got Zalewski, Dybala, Rui Patricio, and Vigna. Zalewski and Dybala are intertwined here. We've got Poland, Saudi Arabia, Argentina, and Mexico. That's a very competitive group. Of course, not Saudi Arabia so much, but Argentina, Mexico, and Poland. Poland is my dark horse. I think that they're going to get to, hopefully, the quarterfinals. And can they really be a dark horse when you have Lewandowski? I'm not so sure. But I want to see Zalewski get some good time here. And Argentina is the team that I think is going to take it. I'm 50-50. I can't decide Brazil, Argentina. I'm somewhere in between. And Rui Patricio is going against Vigna, Uruguay, Portugal, Ghana, and the Republic of Korea, South Korea. So some interesting stuff there. Uruguay, I was talking to a buddy of mine today, thinks that Uruguay is his dark horse. So we'll see what happens in that group. And of course, you can never count Portugal out, an excellent tournament team. So Moving on, we've got Smalling's contract extension has been automatically renewed until 2024. It's hard to put into words what Smalling has meant to this defensive back line over the past several years. He's been a pillar back there. He's one who leads through experience. He hasn't had always the best of luck with injuries. He hasn't had always the best of luck this season with Osimhen just getting the better of him in that split second after he had 89 minutes of an excellent match over the most dominant team in Europe. But the matter of the fact is, the important part, what I'm trying to say, is that Smalling will be extending his time for at least 2 more years in Rome, and I think this is a great thing. I think that he can coach and teach the young center backs around him, get them to mature as individuals and adults, and he is a great presence in the locker room. Also, the women's team is actually doing very, very good. They are in first place in Serie A. A couple weeks ago, they won the Coppa Italia, their first Coppa Italia. That was against Juventus. So, Forza Roma to them. They've been really, really hot. Just doing such a good job for the women's team. Got to be proud of them. And the Primavera recently won against Juventus big time. I think that one ended up at 6-2. So, there's still some things, to be really happy about. In some strange news, the prosecutor for the Italian Referees Association has been arrested for international drug trafficking. There were 42 arrests, and he was part of that. 6 tons of marijuana and hashish into Italy. This is insane. Rosario Donofrio, and he was the chief prosecutor and legal advisor for the IRA, Italian Referees Association, not the other IRA there. He was formerly an officer in the army and was already in the news when he was deferred to the disciplinary commission of the FIGC for failing to open an investigation when a former assistant ref protested at the way referees were graded. So not such a good week for this guy. You don't want to be in the news for that stuff. I'm gonna give you some advice there, but it's been a pretty good week for me, I gotta say. My wife and I went away to Canada, and we went up to Quebec City for a few days. That was really fun. If you ever get a chance, Quebec City and Montreal, but 2 places for 2 very different things. I would say Montreal is a big party town, and Quebec City is somewhere where you go with your partner. And I have definitely some very good food recommendations for both. I think I'll do like a little 48 hours in Quebec City, maybe sometime this week if I get some time to write. Other than that, I've been cooking up a storm. Last night, I did pan-seared pork chops with acorn squash roasted, a little brown sugar on those, and what else? Some Brussels sprouts in truffle oil. Those come out real good. I did all of that in the oven. Of course, the pork chops I pan-seared before I threw them in. And tonight, I'm going to try pasta alla norma, a very good Sicilian recipe. Hopefully, I don't mess this one up. I don't think I will. I'm confident. Gotta fry the eggplant first. And if it comes out good, I'll definitely leave that recipe, or I'll go over it for the next episode. But that's why I didn't do a preview for Torino or a post-match for Sassuolo. Not that anyone wanted to really talk or discuss what was going on after those performances. Anyway, I will be back throughout the week. We'll be keeping you updated with Roma news for sure. And as I said, moving more into the World Cup direction, following the Serie A players. And I've got a little preview for you right here. We've got a lot of different players coming in from Serie A teams. I think it's perhaps over 40 players if I'm not incorrect. So some excellent stuff. Talk to you then, guys.